Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Mortgages by Gretchen show, where I talk to real people in the field of real estate who are not only experts, but they're very generous and willing to share their knowledge and their wisdom with us here. And the goal of the show is for you to gain some information and tips to help you with your own goals in owning real estate and real estate related issues, and to take some of the guesswork out of what to do or who to call when you need some help in the process. Today, I have Afshan Ahmad with me, and Afshan is a certified professional accountant and owner of Afshan Ahmad CPA Professional Corporation. And I met Afshan after seeing her post on Instagram, and I couldn't remember the exact moment when we connected, but I think I'd seen her stuff for a while, knew she was in Whitby, and I was really liking the information she was sharing. And we met for a coffee last year, and I really enjoyed her humor, her warmth, her intelligence, her knowledge, and was eager to continue connecting, both to develop a friendship as well as a working relationship. And fortunately, Afshan was also a speaker at an event that we held at the beginning of March for Women's Financial Empowerment. And she was a huge hit with again, not only her great information, but her amazing sense of humor and warmth. And so I'm very grateful for that. And thank you for being here today.
Hi, Gretchen. That's so kind of you. Thank you. I'm so glad you are my Instagram success story, because I never thought I would meet such nice, awesome people that are down the street from me. Who knew, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Social media.
So feel free to tell us a little bit more yourself about what you do and who you help.
Sure. So like you said, I'm a CPA. I've had my own practice for the past 15 years, and I mainly work with small local businesses, and I assist them with their bookkeeping, their tax planning, their financial statements, and of course their income tax returns. In addition to small businesses, I also work with individuals who need help with their tax planning or tax filing. So basically the core of my practice is just taxes and bookkeeping. So some would find that fairly boring. Of course, that gets me going every day to file someone's taxes.
We're good. We need people like you in the world. Okay, so with all that's been happening with COVID-19, it's hard to keep track of the different programs, what's available, what's changed. How do you recommend that people get answers on the subject if they don't know what they are qualified for, or do they still, is something?
Mm-hmm. A great question, Gretchen. I think in the last 6 months, we have seen our world change on a daily basis. I think I was saying to you before, even if you're an expert in a field, of a certain field, you probably don't feel that anymore because the information is changing so drastically and so significantly in a very short period. What I've found in terms of financial assistance programs that were offered by the government, there was so much misinformation because a lot of times we listen to our friends, our friends, our mom's neighbor, who will give you these great stories of how they got X amount of money from some program, but they can never give you the exact details because likely those details don't really exist. When it came down to CERB, the $2,000 monthly allowance, a lot of people misapplied for the program, and they will likely get dinged eventually because they collected more than they should have because they listened to someone's advice and applied for it twice, and CRA did give them $4,000 a month instead of $2,000 a month. So to answer your question, the best source is always CRA's website, which is Canada.ca. You can type in your web browser Canada.ca, pick English or French, and then just look for the link for financial assistance for COVID-19. That should give you really every single thing you need to know. Of course, CRA's language sometimes is hard to understand, and you probably need to talk to someone who can explain in more layman terms. So if you don't have an accountant that you can call up or speak to, at least try to find someone on social media that you can follow. A lot of us have been more active than we had ever been before COVID, and we are posting information all the time. If you can find one or two that you like and trust, I would say sort of follow them, ask them questions if you don't have your own accountant. Aside from then that, news and any kind of journalists that are reporting on COVID-19. Those are good to keep up with as well. But I've noticed with journalism, there's a lot of senseless, they try to get your attention on something and there's no details available. So CRA's website and perhaps an accountant or two that you trust and like to follow. And of course, daily news is always there. I've noticed a lot of people have stopped watching daily news because it's causing a lot of anxiety. So you can specifically look for this information. If anybody wants to look at mine, my website is afshancpa.com, and there's a link for just COVID where you can go and look into the programs and subsidies that are available.
Perfect. That's great that you're a good resource. And I will say, I appreciate your social media posts. I specifically go on Instagram quite a bit, and there's often really good tips too, just to keep people aware of important things that maybe have changed. So
absolutely, thank you. I think it's just so much new information, right? We are all learning as it comes.
Yeah, and maybe tell us what's your Instagram and your Facebook sign in?
Sure. So because I'm an accountant, I'm pretty boring. They're all the same. It's just Afshan CPA.
Okay, perfect. So you'll be easy to find. So for me personally, I own a small business. I find it hard to keep on top of my receipts and my expenses. And for those people like me who don't make accounting of these things enough of a priority, any recommendations for me?
So I'm not going to say I've never heard this before.
Yeah.
Because it's probably the number one complaints most small business owners have. They wear so many hats, and the accounting hat is probably the least desirable. Yet I think it's fair to say it's probably one of the most important ones, because if CRA isn't happy, then nobody is happy. So I think it's important to recognize that if that's one of your weaknesses, it's important to recognize that that's the case and then put a plan in place. So if it is not you who's going to be do it, perhaps find a team member or outsource it completely to an outside bookkeeper or accountant, or work with someone who can train you to make it easy for you. So you said, Gretchen, you don't enjoy the process, but perhaps if you had an app on your phone that allows you to scan receipts, it might not be as bad as going through a shoebox worth of a whole year's worth of receipts, right? So I would suggest to someone who doesn't like it, perhaps speak to an accountant or a bookkeeper who can set them up on a cloud-based accounting software, which allows them to use their smartphone or tablet or iPad, where they can easily keep track of their expenses. And then they sort of know how they're doing during the year, how much they've spent on different categories. It's very important to have that information available throughout the year, as opposed to once the year's over, and then you look back and see how much money I spent, and then it's already too late because the year's over. So I'd say look into a good accounting cloud-based system. You don't even have to buy a scanner, because like I said, you can use your phone or tablet to scan your receipts. Speak to an accountant who can train you if you want to do that part yourself. And of course, the last scenario is where you outsource everything. You take that little shoebox and you drop it at someone's office. But with COVID being the way it is, I think scanning is probably the best way of going about things, because we also know that audits will be a lot more stronger in the future. So the only way to be prepared for a successful audit is if you have all your paper trail, and the best way to keep your paper trail is to keep it electronic.
Yeah, I do find some receipts by the end of the year, you can't even read them, unfortunately.
Yeah, imagine 7 years from now, right? So I think scanning is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, in your office, you do both the bookkeeping aspect as well as the accounting, or you have staff who can do that?
Yeah, so we do have some people who refuse to do any of their bookkeeping because they realize that their expertise are elsewhere, and we are more than happy to take the burden off of them. And then there are some clients who prefer to do a certain portion of it, and we will do only a small part of bookkeeping. And some do entirely their own, and we were only involved with the tax process.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. Another issue with my business, I do work with a lot of real estate investors they're buying a rental property, they're landlords, they're maybe doing a flip, they may have multiple properties as well. At what point would you recommend someone considering having a holding company and buying properties in a corporate name versus And I know it probably case by case, but is there some kind of guidelines you start with to guide people on that choice?
So that's probably been the hottest question during COVID. And I think it probably has to do, and you would know better, it probably has to do with the interest rates being so low, where people are trying to get into property that they will rent out because they can likely borrow money due to by leveraging their current homes. So I've had this question from a lot of people, and like you said, the answer is it depends on your intention. So if it is a long-term process where you're going to buy a house and hold it for 15, 20 years, I would say it's probably best to just keep it as under your personal name and report the rental income and expenses on your personal tax return. However, if you are more of an investor mindset where you're going to be buying multiple properties, you might keep and hold, or you might flip, and you might, and there will be a lot more activity than that. Then I would suggest a 3-tier model, which you're probably aware of, but a lot of general public is not. 3-tier is where you have a holding company, where you have an operating company, and you have a real estate management company. It gets a little bit complicated, and the reason it gets complicated is because now you've got 3 different entities working, and the whole point of doing that is to minimize your liability, minimize your tax burden to CRA, and also to make it more tax friendly when you eventually either sell the property or pass it on to your children or any other family members. So I think if you are somebody who's looking to get into an investment property, definitely speak to a mortgage broker, but also get into touch with an accountant or a lawyer who can advise you what's the best structure to go with. Unfortunately, it's not an easy answer where I can say yes or no. It depends, but like I said, if you're out of the investment frame of mind, then it's definitely the 3-tier that makes best sense. But again, that doesn't work for everybody. It depends on your long-term intention and your goals.
Okay, that's good though. It's a good starting point to understand about the 3-tier, so that's good. Okay, excellent. So what would be your last piece of advice for Canadians today?
Breathe.
Breathe. Did you say breathe?
I said breathe. 6 months, I think we all sort of held our breath, hoping for things to get better. They got better, and now I think they're going to get probably back to what they were. I think this is a perfect time to sort of remind we are not in control, to take things day by day, to do things with intention, whether it's your finances, whether it's your taxes. I think one lesson a lot of us learn, for those of us who were suffering financially, to qualify for any financial support, you had to have your taxes in order, you had to have your bookkeeping in order. And that's why I think most accountants were super busy than normal during COVID, because we were helping people get caught up so they could qualify for things that they were rightfully entitled to. So if you are one of those people who are generally not organized or behind in their taxes or bookkeeping, I would say, just look at what has happened in the past 6 months. If that happens again, make sure you're ready and prepared to deal with it, because I think the second wave is coming.
Fair enough. That's what the looks like for sure. And
For sure.
Good. Well, and tell us again how to reach you, your website, and your social media is under your name, you said, and your website.
Yeah, so again, afshancpa.com. I like to keep things consistent and simple so I can remember. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and the handles are the same, Afshan CPA. You can also reach me by phone or email. Given COVID, I think email works better for all of us now. And my email is ask@afshancpa.com. And if you can't find me at all, just bother Gretchen.
I know how to find her. Good. Well, I'm very grateful for your time and for sharing all of this really helpful, important information. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for doing this and keeping us informed.
You're very welcome.
All right, have a good one. Take care.
Take care.